Now on this video, we're going to answer, or try to answer to the best of our ability, questions that come in on our channel concerning motorcycles, painting, carbon fiber, and marriage counseling and whatever. We try to share the information to the best of our ability. Sometimes we don't know the answer, but when we don't, we always admit that we don't. But there is some good information on this video that I know is absolutely going to help anybody with a passion for motorcycling or for painting or doing carbon fiber work. And it's information that is shared by a lot of good people on our channel. I try to pass on the information, and a lot of people have sent in pictures of the passion they share for motorcycling. We're going to share those pictures too, and a few funny stories. Well, let's get started. So this is question and answer number 19. We've done 19 of these. They've proven to be way more popular than I ever thought they would be. Today we got a ton of stuff to share, some photos from different people, and I think some really interesting information about carbon fiber and about motorcycles. But I have a tip that I learned, and I didn't think this would work. I tried it. I'm going to pass this information on before we even go down to the shop. This is something I didn't think would work, but it worked perfectly. Now, I was so unsure that this would work, I didn't even bother recording when I did it. But what happened? I want to set the stage. Every time I ride the bike, I check the tire pressure. And this bike, the mean average is 30. I run 30 normally. In the winter or in the summer, maybe up or down 2 pounds, but it's got to be somewhere around 30. Well, what happened is the last maybe 4 times I rode the bike, and it would be maybe 2 weeks in between rides, 3 weeks, the back tire would be down maybe 6-8 pounds. Not the front tire, just the back one. I check the Schrader valve, check everything, and I just fill the tire up with air and go for a ride, check it when I got back, and it was fine when I got back. But if I let the bike sit for 3 weeks, it lost air. So here's what happened. And I know a lot of people would have, made a major problem out of it. I would even. But here's what I did, and it worked really well. I let all the air out of the tire, took the Schrader valve, took the valve out. I should have recorded this, and to be honest. Took it out in the driveway and rolled it with me sitting on a bike. So it basically didn't break the bead like you would with a bead breaker, but it loosened it. Then I took Windex, put it up on the jack, and put the Windex in the top of the tire and spun the wheel. So the Windex kind of worked its way down in the bead, spin it, put some more Windex, spin it. And I know it didn't go in like as if the tire was off the rim. And I let it sit for 5 minutes. And I said, what do I have to lose here? So then what I did, I said, let me try this. I put 50 pounds of air in a tire. And just let it sit at 50 pounds of air. Since I wasn't going to ride this bike for the next week or so, and I'd actually wound up sitting 2 weeks, and I had it all written down on my logbook, and I went back, it was exactly 50 pounds. I said, I wonder if it sealed it. Wow. Now, I know it was the bead area. I know it was because it can only be a few things. The Schrader valve had no bubbles coming out of it, and the bead on one side, if you put the Windex around it, the slightest little bubbles, and so what was happening, it had a very, very, very slow leak. Didn't stop me from riding a bike, but it was annoying. Now it's held there for a month. So I didn't want to put that tip on a video until I knew it was working. That tip worked. At least it worked for me. And good luck if you try it, but my biggest suggestion is always monitor the air in your tires. Now while we're out in the garage, tire information, and I always like to share tire information. We're in the middle of testing Pirelli Angels. This one picked up a nail. And the nail was, I can't find it now, but it was in the side of the tire where it's leaned over as far as you would go on a street ride. And there's a nail. And I was hesitant to plug it, but I checked with several people that ride a lot and have plugged tires, and they had no problem with it. I said, what do I got to lose? I don't even know where that plug is now, but it's been in there. And that tire, because I'm monitoring tire pressure, that tire has never varied even 1 psi. Other tire information are on an MT-09. We're in the middle of doing Michelin 5 tire tests. We are really getting great mileage so far. But I have noticed, and I don't know if this is always true, sometimes a tire wears and wears and wears, and right at the very end it just seems like it's like the gas gauge on a modern bike. I don't know until I'm done and I replace them, but I log everything, and I am very curious to see how these are going to last relative to the several sets of Michelin 2s and 3s that I've had on these type of bikes. And I already proved to myself that I was very happy with the way the Michelin Commanders lasted. They were lasting much better than the Dunlops for sure. So that was my choice for the GS. Anyway, down to the shop. It's chilly out here. So the first question I want to answer is from Adam. He's got a 400 Ninja, and he needs tires. And he mentioned, of course this is all part of what you have to take into consideration, not into hard cornering. And my suggestion to him was, if you're not going to do any track, obviously not track days if you're not going to hard corner, if you're not interested in cornering hard or going out with your buddies and going through the twisties, if you're just cruising through town, you might want to consider just putting normal touring tires on. Don't even buy sport bike tires. It's up to you to decide that, though. Any tire, Vlad told me this, and he's a tire dealer. Any tire that advertises road sport or road track, where the first, and this is Vlad's information, he's always willing to share, the word road, if that's the first letter defining, that's going to be probably a usable, good mileage tire. You're not going to wear out in 2,000 miles. When it says track road, then you got to worry about it. How long is this going to last? And if you're not hard cornering, who cares? But that kind of information, that basic information is what helps people if they're new. And I'm going to assume that Adam is relatively new to motorcycling, newbie and riding less than 60 years. Okay, and it's funny when I say that, but that's how long I've been riding, a lot longer than that too. I was riding illegally there for a couple of years in the woods. Anyway, another guy. Now I want to go through these questions because we have a lot of questions and a lot of pictures, and thank you everybody. I'm not going to leave anybody's pictures out, and if I ever leave somebody's pictures out, please remind me. I really keep track of that religiously, but I'm not really religious. So a fella named Ray sent me a beautiful email. He watched the metal polisher swing-on video, which has about, I think it has 55 or 65,000 hits. Now, some ridiculous amount. A lot of people have benefited. I've gotten all kinds of good information off of that. And it's a video I made many years ago with basic 101 information. And what happened is, a lot of people have watched it. It's one of the more popular ones, along with the polishing the engine videos. But here's what happened. He says, can I pay you to buff out my swing arm? Well, Ray, you don't really have to. There's two possibilities. If you choose not to do it, if you don't feel like it's an appropriate job for you, there's metal polishing places in every big city. Find a place that advertises metal polishing. They're usually right next door or combined with somebody who does chrome plating or brass plating or whatever. But they would gladly do that. And I don't know what the price is, because I like to do all my own work, not only to save the money, but I like to do it. I like getting my hands dirty and grinding and doing all that kind of stuff. But I understand not everybody does. But also, there used to be a place in Newark, and I don't know if it's there anymore, that you could bring them your part, and they would, they keep it a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and they'd polish it to like a mirror. Now the only problem was that's polished aluminum. It's not going to stay that way unless you maintain it. Unless once a month you kind of wipe it down with some Meguiar's polish or something. So keep in mind, polished aluminum, like the polished swing arm on my bike, or a lot of the polished aluminum, it needs a little bit of maintenance, needs 10 to 11 care. Chrome plating, you can leave out in the rain. Not polished aluminum. Polished aluminum, like side covers and engine cases, you need to work on it and keep up with it. But don't be intimidated by that, because when you have a passion for motorcycles, that's part of it. Now, not for everybody, I understand that, but for people that get into customizing a bike, polishing some, so in the old days it would be you buy a Triumph, take the side covers off and polish the little things on the head and polish this and polish that. That's kind of gone the way of flat black paint now, where people buy a modern bike, it's all flat black plastic anyway. My MT-09 was more flat black than anything else. It doesn't mean you have to live with the flat black. You can always paint it, and if it's metal, you can always polish it. Just be aware that after you polish it, there's some maintenance involved. A little bit of maintenance, but there is some. Now, Another fella, and I'm not blowing this guy off. I answered him personally, and I looked up the video on my own. It's URON controller, Uron controller. I don't know what that means. But anyway, I wanted to help the fella out. He wants to put handlebars on his R1. And I went back through the videos, and it's on question and answer 15. It's about a 5-minute segment. I detailed out how I did it. Certainly not the only way to do it, but it is a doable thing. It costs almost no money. It's not a thing where you got to spend $1,000 for parts or anything. And there's a few do's and don'ts which I outlined on the video. So I would refer anybody interested in converting a bike that has clip-ons to handlebars, question and answer number 15. If you don't know how to search my channel, you can search my channel just by putting in the search bar. It'll be motorcycle question and answer Ask Wendy volume 15. You don't put in Q&A. If you're in just plain YouTube, you got to put my name in quotation marks and then what you're looking for, the subject you're looking for. But that's something that a lot of people have asked me, and I don't want to repeat this because we've got a lot of other information to share and a lot of nice pictures. So knowing how to do that search is a very handy thing, and that was taught to me and shared by John Pothier, and it works perfectly. Oh, Scott sent me this interesting piece of little artwork that he did, I guess with Photoshop, some way that they do it. Interesting. Thank you, Scott. Now the next question is from Tyler. Tyler needs some carb parts, and he wasn't aware of where to get carb parts. Well, I have gotten my carb parts for the RD and the carbs that are on the RD, parts that I've used on several of the other bikes, including the 750, from Sudco. Now Sudco has, if you're going to do this kind of work and you're not familiar with it, you're probably better off calling their tech department and let them steer you toward the right part. If you either buy their catalog or get it, if you're ordering something that's a couple $100, they'll throw in this really big catalog, and it's nicely done. It's got millions of parts. But the problem is a lot of times you don't know what part to order, and when it comes to jetting and needles and gaskets, and it can get really involved. I would say, but I have had good luck with Sudco, talking to their tech department and steering me in the right direction, that I didn't buy a bunch of stuff I have to either return or keep. But anyway, if you need carburetor parts, I need carburetor parts for my FZR over the winter. It's time for looking over those needles, and those carbs are getting well worn, and the FZR has a bad habit of, I remember other people telling me this, of wearing out the needles. I've never heard of that, but maybe they use some different material in there, I don't know. But I'll see if Sudco has a rebuild kit, and if they don't, I'll have to do it piece by piece. And that's going to be one of my winter projects over the winter, I hope, if time is available. Okay, next question, and a good one. A good one. Boy, this is something I have answered this question many times, but I know I save somebody a lot of frustration every time I answer it, because I was frustrated trying to figure this out myself. It's from Vincent. What polish do you use for the GS cases? And blah, blah, blah. Everybody thinks that you take Japanese motorcycles back in the day all came with a coating. They would polish the aluminum or do whatever, put a satin finish on it, like the forks on the RD or anything. And then the forks on some of the other bikes, not to even mention one, but the GS is a good example. And when you went to get that coating off, you could sit at the polishing wheel and you could have several cups of coffee and you're just burning up a polishing wheel. What I found I had to do is take like 1,500 grit, sometimes 1,200, and sand that clear coating off. Then polish out the scratches, which is a labor-intensive thing. Or be really willing to do something. Now, I tried aircraft paint remover, 4 or 5 different removers. I tried taking a propane torch and burning it off. That stuff that they put on those bikes back in the day, even my RD, to get those cases polished, labor of love. And don't feel bad if it takes you a lot of hours. Do it in the middle of the winter when there's snow on the ground. Getting that coating off before you try to polish it is job one. And I have not. I hope somebody responds to this and says, oh, I know how to take it off. I haven't found anybody that knows how to take it off, like dip it in a tank of paint remover. I even made, this is true, with the clutch cover that goes on the side of the GS. that was so labor intensive, and it's got that little glass window and everything. I was worried I'd ruin a window. I let it sit in paint remover overnight. Didn't put a dent in it. You could wipe it off, it was exactly like it was. So, I don't know how useful that is, because I hope somebody will respond and say, blank, blank, blank is how I got that, and how I got them coating off. And by the way, that's the whole purpose of our channel. And that coating not only is on fork legs and engine parts and things on bikes of this era, and I don't know when they started, when they stopped, but some of the parts like the Master Cylinder you can buff right out, but some of them have that coating, and that makes it a real labor of love. The purpose is Joe Roselli knows how to take those night light pictures. Luciano knows how to put a crankshaft in a TZ750 while he's asleep. I know how to paint a rock. Karen knows how to cook. And if we all share the information, what I hope happens is we have my channel or other channels where people share. Sharing is a good thing because it's one of the few things in life. It's not like money. You give money away and you don't have the money. If you share information, it's useful. You give it away and you still have it. Now, over many years, my good friend Dallas out in California has shared information he's done on restoring his GS 1100. He also has another bike, a touring bike, but we always go back and forth with tire information and other things. He has a background in aviation the same way I do, and he's owned planes, and we've all owned and have flown around and stuff. That's fun, but this is the best one. That's his lovely wife, Nancy, feeding a giraffe. Okay, some information from Alex, and this is concerning carbon fiber. Top coat of epoxy on carbon fiber has little air bubbles in it. And you can sand through those and sand through those, but sometimes you can't sand through all of them. His tip was to take a heat gun and brush it over the part, and the air bubbles seem to rise to the surface. Anybody who's watched the videos about how you do decoupage, or the river tables, look up videos for river tables. Now, and that breaks the air bubbles apart, and that is absolutely true, and it's good. Now, I have had an exact opposite thing. I have never even given a lot of thought to that because I mold the parts in reverse when I make my carbon sheets, and parts from female molds. But this works every time too. Even if you have those scratches and gouges and things in a part, there's a way to get around it. And I use 4:1 clear, but you must sand the part, and it's got to be free of any mold release. But if you sand it, let's just say you sand it with 1000 grit paper, perfectly flat, put a few coats of 4:1 clear on it, the same way you'd go over paint. You can buff that out like a mirror very, very easily, even complex shapes and everything. So there's a lot, the point is with any carbon fiber, there's a lot of ways to deal with the problems that you encounter and the solutions. There's a lot of ways to do it. In fact, when I made I made an F7, it's a Tiger Cat model. I made the two fuselage halves, a top shell and a bottom shell, and when I joined them, I couldn't get rid of the seam. No matter what I did in the final prime and everything that seam would show, and I found out the way to do it. I took half-ounce fiberglass and ran a Band-Aid around the seam and buried it in good old paint. And in that model, we use Brodak dope, not 4:1. Now, this is just a few pictures of that carbon fiber fuselage that I made the molds for, an upper and lower mold. Extremely complicated job. It was one of the first ones for the event I flew. Not many people, if anybody, had ever done that before. And the cowlings made from molds, all unique carbon fiber. The point, too, is good to always remember. There's always more than one way there's more than one solution to every problem. And especially with carbon fiber work, where years ago, and I go back more than 20 years with Dave Midgley, sharing information on carbon fiber. And what happened? Years ago, nobody would tell you anything. Whoa, you call up a company, you want to know that, son? There was no share. Now it's a whole different world with the internet and YouTube and everything. You basically can find out anything you want. This is an interesting question. Corey, he's got a 97 Yamaha FZR 1000, basically my bike, similar bike anyway. And he was asking about certain information. I didn't write down what the information was, But I made a suggestion to him that out on the channel, if there's a certain part, like replacing this or replacing that, or something, Corey, that would be useful. When I did the FCR restoration, I on purpose did every step in detail, because I knew there'd be a time somebody would want to know, how do you blank, blank, blank. Now the only problem is you got to go through the search on my channel through over 100 videos to figure it out. And I just posted a video of doing the paintwork on the FCR, and I had to go back and do the search, and it was between, if I remember right, FCR Restoration Part 20 and Part 60, say. I looked through a lot of videos, but I found exactly the information I want. In fact, I've already posted that video. So, and what I've tried to do with some of these older videos, because they do get lengthy, is shorten them for certain information, and that was for painting the trim on the FCR, a very complex paint job, and I got it down to about a 20-minute video, so I hope that works for most people. Now, after I posted that video showing how to paint this trim work on this FCR, I had somebody do an inquiry with me and said, is there any possibility you could have used a laser light to do that with a laser light? To be honest, I don't know. I did it all with tape by hand in a garage. Probably was 10 degrees at the time I did it, and it worked out fine in the end. So Adam sent in some photographs and some, we'll do the photographs at the end. We got a lot of photographs to share. But this is really good information for me even. He has a 400 Ninja, and he put a quick shifter on. And he sent me pictures of how it worked out. It's an Antori, A-N-T-O-R-I, and he's real happy with it. And if you're happy with it, that's the bottom line. And if you're looking to add an accessory, and you can find somebody else that already had that accessory and they tried it, whether it's a tank bag or tires or some modification, a seat that might be more comfortable, anything. It's always worth asking a person who already had that modification to their bike. Did they like it? Did it work? Is it useful, not useful, or what? And all I know, we have pictures we're going to show of his bike at the end. I'm going to try to do all the pictures in one continuous thing, which should be nice. But anyway, but the whole point I'm making is that he brought up a good point. I'm looking for a quick shifter for several of my bikes. Now, I'm going to give these people a call and see what their pricing is for certain bikes and if they make it. But I know bikes that don't have a shift rod. If you have a bike where this is what I found out the hard way, where the shaft going into the engine, an RD400, has a shifter on it, it's going to be a different thing to have a quick shifter for that. There's going to have to be some linkages and some things so you can tell the engine to have that brief shut-off time. But on modern bikes, almost all modern bikes have a shift rod, like an R1 has a rod. And a lot of the advantages of that are pretty basic, that you can infinitely adjust the height and the angles and the exponential angles, and there's a lot of things involved in that you wouldn't even know about unless you were an engineer figuring that stuff out. And that's not the point of this video. The point is, bikes with a shift rod, they usually make a quick shifter for. And he said it was relatively easy to install. I don't know if he paid somebody or did it. We're going to be corresponding a little more, and I hope to get some more pictures from Adam about that, because that may be something I want to do over the winter. I'm trying to plan my winter projects, put them in sequence, but of course everything changes when you find something you really like, and all of a sudden the priorities change. Anyway, another cool thing, Scott, of course, has been a good friend for many years. Scott donated that to our cause, and thank you again, Scott. He sent me a picture, we'll show the picture at the end, of a Suzuki that he particularly likes the paintwork on. And I want to share something that I've done over the years with model planes and with motorcycles. I go to Dale's meetup or anywhere, wherever bikes are gathered, or a custom car drives by and I see a color I like, or a trailer truck. Some trailer trucks have beautiful paintwork. And I get ideas, and then I go home and I put that idea in my little notebook and say, I wonder how that's going to work. And then when winter comes and it's time to be doing these things, I've got a book with ideas in it. And I used to do that with model planes. I'd be making sketches all summer long and trying to make myself crazy. But anyway, it's all beside the point. That when you find a paint job you like, take out your phone, take about 8, 10, 15 pictures from every angle. And in the future, maybe Scott will want to make a custom Suzuki like that. He's made a couple of nice custom jobs already. And what makes it work for me, and I know I'm going to get nasty feedback about this, but I got to be honest. I go to Motorcycle Mall and I look at all the modern bikes, and the first thing I think about is I see all this flat black on them, and even the MT-09s, and I think, how would that look shiny black? How would that look blue? How would that look gold? That to me is one of my passions, is to customize a bike and do it in a way that makes sense, not just do it like in a haphazard way like a Mr. Potato Head thing. But anyway, and this is a positive comment I got. How can you not like this guy? His handle is relaxed. Life is better. Well, I got to admit, I read his comment and I was impressed. He said his wife rides. Well, that's a good start to a happy life, that's for sure. And this is the comment that I really took. I thought this guy is really smart. He likes all bikes. He likes all bikes. What a concept. What a great way to start the day. I go to the bike meetups and I don't see a bike I don't like. Now, I like some a little more than others, but I never walk past somebody's bike and say, "Whoa," you know, like I'm a dog looking at a hamster or something. He has Evil Twins. Wow, we're getting to be good friends. He has an FCR 600. I'm thinking maybe I have a twin brother that, you know, with different mother and father. He has a 2020 Ninja. The guy's got to come over for lunch. And here's the one. I know Michelle is going to be impressed with this. He has a CBR 1000 RR. That's Michelle's favorite bike. And he ended the thing with something that really made me want to pass it on. He said he likes all bikes. Well, you know what? That's a good start to having a good life. And one of the reasons I appreciate so many different types of bikes, I've owned so many bikes in my life, dirt bikes, trials bikes, drag bikes, just goes on. But I like to try to appreciate everything. Even when I rode Luciano's the Korean bike, the Hoysung, it was a lot of fun. Now, I got a question that I have answered many, many times, but it's worth repeating. A fellow named Bill, he's impressed that I don't get any runs on when I spray clear. Now, it must be that he's had problems with runs. Could be. But I have mentioned, and I think I mention it often enough, that I've gotten the point across. Maybe I haven't. Could be on me. But let me just repeat it. If you paint with an automotive gun, an automotive gun is made to paint a car. Think about it. It's like painting an elephant and a peanut. Well, it's not the same thing. An automotive gun is great if you really control it and you're really a high-skilled person. Yeah, you can do it. And to be honest, I've posted many videos of me doing it. But I find using a smaller gun, a touch-up gun, and putting thin coats on, a lot of thin coats, I got a lot better chance of getting the material on without getting a run in it. And of course, if you get a run in it, and many of my videos show how to block sand out a run, make it go away, it's not a problem, but it's better if you don't have it to begin with. But anyway, that's if there's even one tip you pick up off the video, when you spray clear, spray a lot of thin coats. If you use a big gun, practice, and don't in other words, don't try to put the part on like you dipped it in a tub of paint and it's all dripping and drooling off, or decoupage. You want to get it on thin layers, and a lot of layers. And if you let each one dry out a little bit, it's less chance it's going to run. So, and I put a lot of that stuff in fast forward, so because it really gets boring. It gets boring to do it, let alone watch it. Anyway, that was one point I wanted to make. Now, a question I don't know the answer to, but I only can share what works for me. This is a fellow named John, and he uses ethanol. I'm going to hope I got this right, John. Ethanol-free 90 in his GS, and he's had to rebuild the carbs in the past several times, or twice, I think. But to avoid having carb issues, he uses and I want to get it that I didn't. I write this down, and at my age, you could be writing down a recipe to a muffin mix or something. Ethanol-free 90. Now, I don't know ethanol-free 90. We don't have it up here, so I don't even know. Now, maybe you could get it at a marina or at an airport. I don't get involved in that, and I don't poo-poo people who do it. I just say, for me, I ride every day. I can't be involved, and I can't go to the marina every day to fill up the bike, or whatever. But John, I respect that you're sharing information that has worked for you. I'm going to share the information that works for me. Now, at one time I had 9 bikes. I have 7 still registered, and the information that worked for me, I would get people asking me every winter, oh, put this additive in the fuel, put this in the fuel, put that, do this, do that, add this, take the fuel. And several people, and people I really respect that know what they're doing, say, oh, drain the bikes out, get all the gas out of the carbs. And I never did any of that. So I only know what works for me. But what does work for me is through the winter months, the 2 or 3 winter months when it's real cold, at least once every 2 weeks, and I try to do it at the warmest part of the warmest day of that period, is I'll go out and run each one of the bikes for X amount of time. That gets rid of the moisture in the exhaust system. And it also, and a lot of people don't know this, and a lot of people maybe have a different opinion, but just this is only what works for me. What happens with my older bikes, let's take the 750 for instance, or the GS. When you go to start them after they haven't been started for a long time, the float bowls are kind of empty. They're vented. Think about it. Anything with a vent, the gas is going to evaporate in time. So the float bowls are going to be empty, and that's part of the problem is when you have alcohol on a fuel. But if you constantly are flushing it every 2 weeks, putting new fresh fuel in there, burn up some of the old fuel, get out of the exhaust. And the only reason I really say that is when we owned the Air Coupe, the partners that owned the Air Coupe, we used to take turns and go down and no matter how cold it was, run the engine, prop the engine, get the oil circulated, bring the engine up to operating temp, and never let it just sit and rot. And I wanted to mention one other thing. This is really funny. I should have documented this years ago. I had a friend in modeling named Carlos Serra, and he had a friend that we visited his house. He had a Ferrari collection of older Ferraris. And the guy emphasized, he let us look at the cars, they were all up on jacks, on stands, and he emphasizes no matter what, you got to every week or two run the engine, and he takes a little ride around when the weather's appropriate. He says, but you can't just put it in storage and let it rot. And I know people do that, and battery tender would be a smart thing. I run the battery tender all summer even, I don't even care. Electricity is not my concern. It's cheaper than replacing these batteries. They're over $100. But anyway, that's only how I deal with it. I wish I had some scientific. I don't like Dr. Fauci where I know what the hell I'm doing. And then years later they find out he doesn't know what he's doing. But anyway, what I have done has worked for me. I have not had to rebuild carbs. The FZR, I had to repair a leak with a dried out O-ring, and it seems like it might be due for an overhaul. But I'm not going to do it until I really have to do it. And what I've always tried to do, even in the middle of winter here, we still have snow on the ground and the lakes are frozen. If I can get out with my winter riding gear and get a ride in just to get some mileage on a bike and get some fresh gas in the carbs. Now maybe a good tip that's not really motorcycle related, but it just saved me a lot of money. I have a really old dryer. It's probably 20 years old. I live in a 100-year-old house. Everything's old, including me. But what happened is, the other day, and it was a couple of weeks ago, Karen went down to do a load of dryer, put the clothes in the dryer, turned the knob, nothing happened. Turned the knob, nothing happened. I said, oh my God, we're dead in the water here. And I could not make the dryer come on, no matter what I did. And what I realized had happened, and it's really a sneaky thing, the knob has a little flat spot, and it rotates on the shaft. And what happens is, the knob was rotating, but it wasn't turning the shaft. So what happened is I pulled the knob off and looked, and it was split. I said, okay, well, we could just go buy another knob, but now I can't do laundry till I get the knob. I took some safety wire, ran around the knob, and tightened it up, put it back on, It worked perfect. And I said, that's a good tip. I wonder how many people, when that happens to them, they run out and buy a dryer. So I thought I'd share that. Anyway, worthwhile. Another thing, and I feel so good about this. I wanted to share this information, then we're going to get into sharing the pictures. I wanted to do all the pictures at the end because we got a lot of pictures. And so many people. We have had the K&W model railroad in my attic of this house. We celebrated 25 years. Miles was over here. We were running trains, and we've been running trains since he's been a baby. And it brought back so many memories of my friends that I don't see a lot of anymore. Some of them have moved away. Some of them have gotten out of model railroading now, where we don't share it the way we used to. But I still love running the trains every once in a while. And I did that video, and I got such good feedback from it. I am going to make another video very soon of, because I have it on a lot of old DVD, they're not DVD discs. I don't even remember what they called them, those circular discs. I have all the information of when we built that layout. And it was fun. There's a lot of good memories in there. Anyway, if you don't like model railroading, that's the end of that. Anyway, now I want to try to do this in a methodical way. I want to try to put all the photos, I downloaded them all into a folder, and I want to just go through them one by one and share. And thank you to everybody that sent in these pictures. They are priceless. I really do enjoy seeing what other people do, and from all over the world. This is the Scott photo, and he must have seen this bike at a meetup or friend's house or something, and he really liked the paint job. Scott, you know how to paint. Buy up a rusty rent-a-bike and make this one your own. This is a photo from England from Andy, stuck in the 80s. The bracket he made so he could use this brake system. He put Brembo discs on his SVR. Brembo calipers, it looks like, and discs. Maybe just the calipers, I can't really tell. But custom machining looks pretty good to me, Andy. And this was from Andy, of course. He's going to run his Yamaha two-stroke for us here. This is a really cool little video. And this is what I really appreciate, because I was in England. I appreciate the passion they have for their motorcycles. And we all have the same passion for two-strokes. And from our good friend, Henry Hawk. Henry, he's an over-the-road trucker. These are from the Amarosa, Iowa National Motorcycle Museum. And he's been sending me a lot of pictures of his motorcycle collection, his Moto Guzzies. I think he's making Pokey crazy and jealous. Oh, Pokey's crazy and jealous anyway. It's very cool, and I always appreciate anybody who shares their passion for motorcycling. And these were shared by John. He's at the Antietam battlefield with his beautiful, and I mean, we've had this on our video before. This is a beautiful GS, and he's got two of them. So, long story, it's on the last video. At the Antietam battlefield, and that's some beautiful photography. John, I appreciate you sharing and all the information with the carbs and the gas, and these beautiful photos of the GS. These photos are from Adam of his 400 Ninja. He's going to show his camera mount. He's got a front and rear camera mount. Looks like an aftermarket exhaust. And, of course, the quick shifter. And a monitor up on the handlebars. I never saw that before. Again, I used the GoPro that Najat was so generous in donating to me. But there might be a time in the future where I'll want to upgrade to a nicer camera. But for right now, we're getting a lot of use out of Najat's donation. And it's a beautiful bike, by the way. Look at where the camera mounts up in the front. And, of course, the quick shifter.
That's a real nice, tidy, professional looking mount. And the bike looks very similar to Luciano's 400. And boy, everybody that's got one of these loves them. And I want to thank everybody who in the past has responded to our question and answer videos with information, photos to share, info to share. If you'd like to share any of your passion for motorcycling, either pictures of your motorcycles or your adventures or restorations or whatever, please feel free to submit the pictures to me at fzrguy72618 and please make the photos an attachment that I can download into the computer. Now I know some of them come out full size like this one, some of them come out in a different mode, but I think they give us the general idea. And when you have a passion for this stuff, I don't know how to explain it to people that don't have a passion. I enjoy looking at motorcycle pictures. I love hearing stories of other people's adventures. And I love just sharing it all with the videos that I edit. So I hope I didn't leave anybody out. I hope I didn't misunderstand somebody's communication. I try not to use people's last names, but again, maybe some of my friends are in witness protection. I don't know. But anyway, and everybody that contributed to this video and to all of the question and answers, thank you one and all for sharing your passion for motorcycling. And that's what this channel is about. It's a non-political. We're not going to try to subject people to a criticism or I like black bikes, red bikes, green bikes, or whatever. It's for everybody and for everybody to enjoy. And thanks so much for watching. So over my short lifetime of 77 plus years, I have been lucky enough to accumulate my humble bike collection that I maintain and work on and upgrade constantly. But the whole purpose of having all of these motorcycles is not to look at them and not to put them in museums or not to do anything with them other than to get out on the open road and ride them, and we try to do that as often as possible, and hope that the motorcycles in turn keep us young as long as possible. And to be truthfully, it seems to be working. So Nancy, thanks for feeding the giraffe for me. And thanks so much for watching.